follow-up question regarding the QR code that you
Mhm.
were able to generate in your search process.
Yeah.
Is that just for you to access, or anybody can access if they have the link?
Anyone can access it. So if I put you back on the library homepage, if it's in one search, it automatically, sorry, I was trying to make that more visible. There we go. Yeah, so that anyone can generate it. And if you copy it and paste it, or you can actually snap a photo with your phone, and it will generate no matter what.
Okay.
I think the only difference is that if I believe so, and I could be wrong, Sarah, correct me. I think if you have student access or faculty or staff, then you get the full access. But if you don't, and it's and if you're just public, then you would be a little bit more restricted. But the search stays.
Right. I was just wondering, if my private search that I've generated this QR code makes sense for me to go back, but you're saying a student can access it and see my search results and I can share it in my class. Okay.
Yeah, I actually share one of mine on a library guide. So
Okay.
it will just take it to the search that I conducted with the list that I
That's
found
great.
useful.
And another thing we use it for, I think the librarians a lot, is we use it for like consultations. Like you'll be working with the student. I use it with English professors who are teaching Comp 1s, and I tell their students, like, if you need help from your professor, why not give them this jewel so they don't have to try and retrace your steps. So it really does make a difference in that way.
So I have a follow-up question for both Dan, you and Sarah. When you're working with instructors and trying to help them find OER materials, what advice would you give to instructors to help them prepare for a meeting with you? Or, what kind of background work can they do to prepare to?
Yeah. Do you want to take it first? Or we go?
Well, I think just show them the library guide and have them explore a little bit on their own. I know that I have some of my favorites, and I'm sure Dan knows a lot of the other ones he prefers, but just so that there's some sort of comfort level in navigating the OER library guide, because it is a lot and it's very good, but it's a lot. Also, know that library guides are universal and international. So if we don't have a certain subtopic that exactly matches what you want, you can always tell us and we'll build it. But you can also Google library guide, open education resources, and what you're looking for. And because a lot of librarians throughout the world curate in different ways, specialized topics. So I love that. I don't know if I would throw that out there the first meeting, but that's been very helpful for me.
Yeah, I think one of the things I try to do is like have a session with the professor where I discuss like what are their goals. Like what I agree with Sarah, like show them the library guide, give them a rough like breakdown of it. But I always talk about like what is the class topics, like what are the things that you find hardest to find. Ask them to, like, even if they have an email where they can just jot down notes about what they need and what they don't need help with. And then the IDs have been really great with building, or instructional designers, for those of you who are unaware of them. They're great with like making a template for the course, and then like the OER course shell, and then we can just kind of play around with it. And I'm doing that with one of your professors, Katerina Hall, right now, where we are, I'm finding some materials in the library because that's more where my comfort level is with this material, and she's finding some other things, and you kind of collaborate. And I think it's that open conversation between the ID, the librarian, and the professor. And don't get me wrong, there are plenty of professors who've gone through the OER initiatives or used OER materials without the initiative, and they've just found it. They like the other day I was working with a professor in business, and I think we found her a textbook in 1 hour, and it just
That's a question
That's what
I was going to
happens.
ask for both of you guys. Like, if there's somebody, I mean, obviously this workshop is specifically focused on open textbooks, right? As opposed to, going module by module to find text for module 1 and text for module 2. But if there's an instructor who has a hope of finding a sort of full-blown textbook, right? Like, I'm replacing my $200 whatever chemistry textbook with a single open resource. Do you have any sense of, like, is there an average amount of time that a faculty member spends, or is it really case by case? Like, one person can find a good resource in an hour, and another one it takes, a lot longer.
I think it depends on two things, and I think Dr. Moody is right. We were talking about this earlier. I think in some cases, professors have a ton of time. Like maybe they have a lighter semester or a lighter load, or maybe their course isn't going live till fall, so they can work on it over summer. You know what I mean? I find it really is case by case, and I think Sarah is right. It is. But the one thing I think that does behoove you, if you are the type of a person that needs time to really vet through materials and look through to make sure you're getting what you want, is take it piece by piece. Even if you're finding one book, you can't just find it in 2 seconds. You have to review it, you have to look through it. And I think that's why when you're looking at an open access textbook, I think when OpenStax really started at Rice University, right? They got a lot of pushback from other universities saying, well, how do we know it's credible? And I think that's the hard thing. It's putting their trust in yourself to know that what you're using is viable, is usable, and will be perceived well by your students.
Well, that comes back to a point that came out of that conversation when we had the faculty panel, is like, how do we know it's credible?
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of what your job is through this process, right?
Yeah.
And that's part of the review that we encourage faculty members to do, is because the reality is there is content out there that's just not, I don't want to say it's not good, but it's not a right fit for your course. Or, maybe the focus of this textbook is slightly different than the objectives that you have in your course. But the point of the matter is, like, that's what this review process is about vetting, figuring out, is this a good resource? Is this something that's going to work for my students? Is it? And we'll talk momentarily about the criteria for evaluating those resources when we get to the actual review part. But anyway, go ahead, Sarah. I think you were going to say something.
Oh,